Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Brightworks. Today we're going to be taking a look at something that, well, I figured this video has been a necessary one. Should have been in the works from a long time ago. This is, assuming you've read the title you already know, the Nuke Rush video. Now, this build that I'm going to show here is just my best attempt at it. It's not based on a build order from anyone else, but I know that those are out there. But you, of course, are welcome to use this build in any of your games. And let me know down below if you have any tips for this build that you can see that are going to be able to make it a little bit more efficient. I think overall for this build, I excessed less than 40 metal. And yeah, there was a bit of energy excess, but that was kind of hard to manage towards the end. So that's definitely one area that could be a bit better. But aside from that, this is a sub 10 nuke and a sub 15 nuke rush, which you'll see here in a little bit. Starting off here, I did get 3 mexes because these are a bit spread out. You can afford to get all 3 without stalling on energy. So I started off with 3 different mexes all in their spots, and then I went for wind power. Wind on a couple different attempts. This took me 3 attempts in order to get this one, which I think is the best of the 3. Wind was a bit finicky on the other on one of them. It essentially stayed at 5 for almost the entire match. So that run kind of died because I relied very heavily on wind power. Another one I used solar panels, and it actually works really well. You just have to be really on top of reclaiming all of your solar energy, just so you're not leaving that metal there on the ground. And that run also was pretty smooth, but this that one I ran into issues later on with build power constraints. So this one I think was probably the best of all those runs. Now you can see I threw up a bot lab after my first 6 windmills. And then I queued up 2 construction workers and a Lazarus. So the first construction worker I'm just sending over here. Oh, by the way, this map, it's called Ice Scream. This is a really popular Nuke Rush map just because there's always one player in the back line right here. It's going to be essentially locked off from the rest of the world by the mountain ranges here. So this is a really common one for people to go for Nuke Rushes on. So I figured it was thematically appropriate to show you how to do it on this map. If you're playing this spot, this is probably one of the few maps that I would say it's okay to go for a Nuke Rush. You do want to communicate with your team though, of course, let them know what you want to do. I start building some solar panels here. I was actually just experimenting with something. There's an interesting trick to these solar collectors for Armada, and it's the fact that you can actually space them closer to each other than you would think. So you can see how the box is like colliding with the other solar panel right there. So it turns out if you put one space between them, you can actually build solar panels in like just a much tighter configuration, which is kind of interesting. But I decided not to go for that other solar panel, instead using the Lazarus to reclaim the bot lab for the metal to fund a geothermal plant, as you can see here. Sending the commander over to build the geothermal, and once the commander gets here, I start up a construction turret. Now I start stalling for energy, but that's alright, because for the most part I'm just worried that I'm not accessing anything. But I am stalling on energy, so maybe another solar panel would have been good here. I stopped the Lazarus from reclaiming this just before it finishes, just so it's ready to be reclaimed, but it is not gonna overflow too much metal into my bank, my metal web. You can see this construction worker is almost finished with this metal extractor here, so after that it's just queued to come back this way. That's because I plan to upgrade these at some point, so I want it to be ready standing by here when the T2 construction worker comes by. And you can see we're almost done with the geothermal here. We've gotten lucky with the wind basically staying at 9.9. This would probably be a lot slower if the wind was any worse. That's really the main constraint here. But as soon as the geothermal comes up, we suddenly have access to tons of energy, meaning that we can put up these construction turrets a lot quicker. And so that's what I do. I go up to 3 construction turrets here, using the commander to help these along. And then it's at this point that I tell the Lazarus to finish eating the bot lab. So that's what that does. And the construction worker over here is just about ready. Now you can see I'm accessing a bit of energy here, so I send my commander over this way to build some of these energy converters. And I go for 4 here initially, but I think eventually I end up with 6, which I think is a pretty good number. I want to just make sure that these energy converters are up so that I'm not wasting energy since I have it at my disposal. I start sending the Lazarus to collect these solar panels, harvest those up for their 150 each, and then after that, it should pick up all these wind turbines as well. Again, in case you missed my hotkeys and controls video, to reclaim all of your certain structures in an area, you just hit E and then hold Alt, left Alt, and then left click and drag, and it'll eat up any of the things that you had hovered over. So in this case, it was the solar panels. It would eat all the solar panels. If I did the same key configuration, hovered over a wind turbine, it would do all the wind turbines. So that's how that works. I send my commander over here and detonate it because I do need a bit more metal to finish off this T2 lab. And so I use the 2,000 you get from sacrificing your commander in order to finish off this T2 advanced bot lab. So that will finish up momentarily. You can see our in-game time is 5 minutes and 46 seconds. So mostly just worried about making sure that there's enough time, or rather that this is a quick enough rush that they can't have an anti-nuke up yet. This first constructor, I was actually debating what to do with this. I was unsure about what I wanted to do with this constructor. So and the decision I was trying to choose between was making this advanced geothermal and upgrading my metal extractors. I decided to go with the metal extractors and then start another advanced construction and use the second one in order to build the advanced geothermal plant. Now, the advanced geothermal plant is incredibly efficient. It's 1,250 energy for nearly half the price of a fusion reactor. Yeah, in fact, less than half the price of a fusion reactor for more energy output. So incredibly efficient to build these things. So you definitely want to go for those whenever you can. But yeah, so I have the second constructor start using its build power on the advanced geothermal plant. And I bring the Lazarus over here to start working on tearing down this T2 bot lab. This advanced bot lab. And the reason for that is that I don't need this anymore. All I wanted out of these were the T2 constructors. And after that, I'm going for the nuke. So I want to get rid of that, turn its metal back into economy buildings. That's 2,900 metal that's tied up in an advanced bot lab. And I would much rather have that be spent on some other building, either metal extractors or geothermals or energy converters, whatever it may be. At this point, I realize this constructor doesn't really need to be here because it's already started this and the construction turrets can finish it. So I just send it to go upgrade these metal extractors, figuring this one will stay closer to this base. So I'll just use this for once I'm ready to plop down the nuke. Now at this point, I'm actually running into a metal stall. So I take one of these construction turrets and I tell it to help eat up this bot lab, as well as this construction bot here. And with that, we have enough metal to finish off the building, and we're just waiting for the energy to build up eventually. Now, this probably could have been a bit faster if I had told these bots here to go to low priority, basically forced all this into high priority. This probably could have come up a little faster, so maybe 30 seconds or so shaved off of this building's production. But I think it was probably fine, and it was probably worth having this constructor build these advanced metal extractors, just so that we're producing enough metal to be ready to build a nuke. The nuke costs, let's see here. The nuke costs 8,100 metal and 90,000 energy. So very, very expensive to build one of these. And we need to make sure that we pull that 8,100 metal. Just looked it up. But yeah, 8,100 metal. We need to make sure we're able to pull that out of wherever we're going to get that from. I figure probably the easiest option is, first of all, we can reclaim this metal storage because I won't need it after I start building the nuke. And the other thing is the nuke itself is going to be a huge metal sink, so we need to make sure that when we're pumping metal into there, we're not excessing anything or depleted on anything. We basically want to have the perfect amount. So I settle for 7 construction turrets. A previous run I had gone for 8, and it seemed like just a bit too much. So 7 was pretty good, and you can see it actually balances out nicely. I'm putting in 86 metal per second into this nuke launcher. So it's telling me it's going to take about 1.5 minutes, which is pretty good. That's 9 minutes, and that'll be done in 9 minutes and Sorry, it'll be done in 10 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. Anyways, it'll be done pretty quick. I think I said sub 10 minutes. That looks like it wasn't the case. Hard to remember. I recorded this and I was so focused on everything I forgot to remember the times. But still pretty fast, close to 10 minutes anyway. I think there is a way to do this in under 10 minutes if you're, absolutely goated. But this is my best attempt at it, so this is what I decided to show you. Some original content, original works of art. We can see these metal extractors are coming up and online, so we're already up to 45 metal per second, more than enough to fund the 86 per second draw because it'll stall long enough that we can produce all the metal. I also send my lasers over here to pick up these wind turbines because the wind is dropping and they just contribute. They don't contribute enough power to my grid to be worth the metal that they cost. Also taking some of these construction turrets and tearing down this metal storage because I don't need it. I don't have that much metal to my name, so not worth having the metal in the storage tied up in metal. So the nuke is almost completed. We're up to 89%, 90%, and this is when I start to metal stall, which is sort of unfortunate, but this metal extractor finishes up just in time, so I'm like, okay, I'll just let this finish, and indeed it didn't end up slowing this down very much at all. So sub 11 minute, I guess we could call it. Basically finished up at the 11 minute mark. And at this point, we're just waiting for the nuke to finish, right? So the important thing is that the nuke launcher takes 1042 energy and 8 metal per second in order to charge nukes. So it's important that when you're building things, when you go for the expansion, you don't want to drain so much energy out of your system that you can't fund the nuke being built. So I plopped down an energy converter and then I realized I'm using way too much energy. So I tell all of these to pause. And then I just use the advanced construction worker and a T1 bot to build this thing. And in fact, I think I turned the T1 bot off as well. So this is draining 108 metal, or rather 108 energy per second, which is less than quick maths here, but we basically have an excess of 300 energy. So I'm just making sure I'm not spending more than that so that the nuke has plenty of energy to charge. Now we're about halfway done with the nuke, which does mean that we are, well, basically just waiting right now. At this point, it would be good to communicate with your team and let them know that you need a scout. Maybe ask them where they want the nuke placed, because I just target the back area over here. This is a pretty good area to target because it'll blow up all the metal stuff over here, and it'll also blow up the geothermal plant, and also the nuke will land. Some of it, sometimes, depending on where you put it, it'll collide with these mountains. But yeah, this is a good point to get into chat, talk to your team, ask them if they have any areas that they think you should nuke, if they've scouted anything. If they know where any anti-nukes are, make sure you avoid those to the best of your abilities. And if you have a player that's already has an air lab out and working on that sort of thing, make sure to ask them to make a few scouts and either give them to you or scout themselves. Now the nuke is almost done. I've started up a fusion reactor. This is sort of not really the point of this video, the transition out of here, but I just wanted to see what it would cost, like whether it'd be viable to go for a fusion reactor while you're still charging the nuke. And indeed it does. You can see that as soon as this thing finishes charging, I unpause all of these and the nuke almost immediately stalls on energy. So that's what we were avoiding, and that's why I was restraining all this build power back here. But as soon as it's done, I start building all this stuff, and you can see the nuke is launched, and we'll call time officially as soon as the nuke lands, whenever that will be. It looks like it's going to be maybe 13:30. 13:25. Boom, 13:26. So go ahead and mark that down. 13:26. I think that's a pretty good nuke time. I usually don't build a anti-nuke until minute 14 or so. So this is a pretty good nuke rush. Now be aware, of course, that on this map specifically, Ice Cream, people are going to expect you to nuke rush, so they'll probably have anti-nukes out a lot quicker. If you're playing this backline spot, also remember that instead of going for this other fusion, going for an anti-nuke is also a good idea. Your teammates will be thankful, especially the ones around here. But yeah, that's my 13:26 nuke rush. Not sure how you call a nuke rush, whether you call it by the time the nuke lands or the time the nuke builds. 11 minute nuke chamber and 13:26 nuke explosion. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys got to see the build order. Feel free to share this around if you think this is worthwhile. Give it some practice. Make sure to jump into a game like this and practice doing this build order, because it was really tough. There's actually a lot to manage, and it doesn't seem like it, but I don't consider myself an APM hero, right? I don't have thousands of disposable actions per minute to spend micromanaging, and I'm also not that great at it in general. So make sure you practice this before you throw it into a public game. Before, just in case something goes wrong. This is obviously ideal circumstances. They might send out bombers. They might have units or something. Whatever might go wrong, you just want to be prepared for that and know what you're doing. That way you can improvise when something needs to change. Anyway, I think that's going to be all for you. Hopefully this helps you guys, and you've been able to glean some sort of information out of here. Feel free in the comments to discuss any points you found. Let's take a look at the statistics here. Metal produced, metal excess, 33 metal excess. So I think that's pretty good. That's kind of a, the lower this number, the more efficient the build order is, right? And that metal excess probably comes down to like the starting metal is probably like 10 of that or something. Like when you just land, your commander is generating metal and you lose a little bit. So I'm not sure where the other metal excess came from. Maybe one of you guys can spot it, but I think 33 is pretty good. Energy excess of 9.5. That could have been converted into metal, so that definitely could be improved. But aside from that, I really think this was a pretty good attempt at it. Let me know what you think, and please consider subscribing if you want to help me hit my goal. We're already up to 300 now, so I don't even know. I thought maybe this channel would get to 150 subscribers, and we've already doubled that. So I guess we'll just see how high we can get. Anyways, that's all from me. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.